If you're watching this video right now, something deep inside you already recognizes what I'm about to share. Your mind might not fully grasp it yet, but your body knows. Your cells are responding. Your consciousness is tuning into a frequency that's been calling you for longer than you realize. This is the moment when the version of yourself you've been carrying around like worn-out clothing is ready to be shed. Not destroyed, not abandoned, but released back into the field of infinite possibilities from which it came. Right now, as you absorb these words, there's an invisible pattern woven around your existence. It's not visible to the naked eye, yet it determines everything. How you think, how you feel, how you move through the world, what opportunities you notice, and which ones remain completely invisible to you. This pattern has been running your life on autopilot, making the same decisions, creating the same reactions, generating the same version of reality day after day after day. Here's what most people never discover about consciousness and the fundamental nature of reality. This pattern isn't just psychological. It's not simply learned behavior or childhood conditioning. It exists at the most basic level of your being, encoded in the electromagnetic field that surrounds your physical form. Quantum physicists have been studying this phenomenon for decades, and what they've found challenges everything we thought we knew about who we are and how change actually happens. Have you ever noticed how you can read all the right books, attend all the workshops, make all the affirmations, yet somehow you keep ending up in the same situations? Have you ever wondered why some people seem to transform their entire existence in what appears to be a single moment, while others spend years trying to shift even the smallest habit? The answer lies in something that ancient wisdom keepers understood intimately, something that modern science is only now beginning to measure and validate. There's a specific threshold, a precise point of no return, where your entire energetic signature begins to reorganize itself, where the old programming starts to dissolve at the subatomic level, where the universe itself recognizes that you're ready for a completely different timeline. Most people never reach this threshold because they're approaching transformation from entirely the wrong direction. They're trying to become a better version of the old self. They're attempting to upgrade the existing operating system. They're working to improve the character in the story rather than recognizing they're not the character at all. But what if I told you that this entire approach is like trying to change your reflection in the mirror by touching the glass? What if everything you've been taught about personal growth, about change, about becoming who you're meant to be, has been backwards? The ancient teachers used to say you cannot put new wine into old vessels. The container itself must be dissolved before the new can emerge. Modern neuroscience has now proven this ancient wisdom in laboratories around the world, measuring the exact moment when neural pathways literally disintegrate and reform in entirely new configurations. But here's what the books and courses don't tell you. This quantum shift doesn't happen gradually. It doesn't occur through willpower or positive thinking or visualizing your dream life. It happens in a moment of complete surrender, what physicists call wave function collapse, where the old version of you simply ceases to exist as a probability in the quantum field of all possibilities. Are you ready to discover why? Because what I'm about to reveal in the next few minutes will shake the very foundation of everything you believe about identity, about change, and about the nature of consciousness itself. You're about to understand why letting go isn't just a spiritual concept found in ancient texts. It's a quantum necessity for accessing dimensions of existence that remain completely invisible to those trapped in the old paradigm. The question is, are you prepared to stop trying to fix who you think you are and start allowing who you truly are to emerge from the infinite field of pure potential? To understand why release is the only authentic path to transformation, we need to journey into the deepest mysteries of how consciousness actually operates. Every single morning, when you open your eyes, you're not just waking up from sleep. You're collapsing infinite possibilities into one singular experience of reality. You're making a choice, though it happens far below the level of conscious awareness, about which version of yourself will show up in this dimension today. But here's what's occurring beneath the surface that most people remain completely blind to. Every single time you choose to be the same person you were yesterday, every time you react from the same emotional programming, every time you make decisions from the same limited set of beliefs, you're not just maintaining your current life. You're actively constructing what quantum physicists call a probability field lock. You're literally cementing yourself deeper and deeper into one specific timeline, while countless other timelines, other versions of your life, other expressions of your potential fade further and further into impossibility. Think about this for a moment. In the quantum field, all potential realities exist simultaneously in what scientists call superposition. The version of you that's confident, abundant, and expressing your highest gifts exists right now, not in some distant future, but in this present moment, simply vibrating at a different frequency. But so does the version of you that's stuck, fearful, repeating the same patterns year after year. The act of attention, your consciousness selecting which reality to experience, is what crystallizes one possibility into your lived experience and causes the others to dissolve into the background noise of unrealized potential. This is where ancient mystical understanding and cutting-edge quantum mechanics converge in the most profound way. The Vedic seers spoke of Maya, the grand illusion of the separate self. Buddhist masters taught anatta, the recognition that fixed identity is a fiction. What these traditions understood thousands of years ago through direct experience, quantum physics is now demonstrating in controlled laboratory settings. Your identity, the person you're absolutely certain you are, is not a solid, unchanging thing. It's a collection of habitual thoughts, recycled emotions, and automated behaviors that have carved what neuroscientists call dominant neural networks. These are the grooves in your brain that make certain responses feel automatic, unconscious, completely natural. They're so deeply ingrained that they feel like your true nature. But here's the revelation that changes absolutely everything. These neural networks, these patterns that seem so permanent and unchangeable, they only exist because you keep energizing them. They only have power because you keep feeding them with your attention, your emotional charge, your sense of self. The precise moment, and I mean the exact instant, that you stop identifying with these patterns, something extraordinary happens at the quantum level. The wave function that was holding that version of reality in place begins to destabilize. The old you literally starts to dissolve, not as destruction, but as liberation into something far more expansive. This is why every genuine spiritual tradition throughout history speaks of death and rebirth. This is why the hero's journey, which appears in every culture on earth, always involves a descent into the unknown, a moment of complete ego dissolution. It's not metaphorical storytelling. It's describing the actual quantum mechanical process of consciousness transformation. The old structure of self must die for the new expression of being to emerge from the field of infinite potential. But here's where most people completely misunderstand the process. They think letting go means losing something precious. They think it means giving up parts of themselves that they've worked hard to develop. They approach it with fear, with resistance, with a sense that they'll be less than they are now. But what if I told you that what you think is you, this collection of thoughts and stories and identities, is actually the tiniest, most limited version of who you really are? What you're letting go of isn't your true self. It's the prison that's been keeping your authentic nature hidden from view. What you're releasing isn't your power. It's the illusions and limitations that have been blocking your true power from expressing itself. What you're surrendering isn't your identity. It's the false identity that's been preventing your real nature from shining through with full brilliance. The caterpillar doesn't become a better caterpillar through effort and willpower. It doesn't set goals to improve its caterpillar life. It surrenders so completely to the transformation encoded in its very cells that its entire structure liquefies, dissolves into primordial soup, before reorganizing into something that bears no resemblance to what it was before. And this is just the beginning of understanding. What I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly how this quantum process unfolds, why it feels so challenging to the thinking mind, and most importantly, how to navigate it with grace and deep trust instead of fear and resistance. Because once you truly understand the deeper mechanics of consciousness transformation, you'll see that letting go isn't something you do through effort. It's something you allow through surrender. It's not an action. It's a cessation of the action that's been keeping you locked in place. Take a moment right now. Just pause. Notice the subtle shift in your energy as you absorb what's being shared. There's something different happening inside you, isn't there? Something that wasn't present when you first clicked on this video. That's not your imagination playing tricks. That's your quantum field beginning to recalibrate in real time. What you're experiencing in this precise moment is what physicists call quantum entanglement with higher dimensional possibilities. The information entering your awareness right now isn't just being processed by your conscious mind. It's activating dormant patterns in your DNA, awakening cellular memories of who you are beyond all the conditioning and programming you've absorbed throughout your life. Can you feel that slight expansion in your chest? That gentle loosening of something that's been held tightly for so long? That's the beginning of quantum decoherence. The old patterns starting to lose their electromagnetic grip on your energy field. Your nervous system is literally beginning to attune to a higher frequency version of yourself that exists beyond the boundaries of who you've believed yourself to be. This is sacred ground you're standing on right now. This moment of recognition, this stirring of possibility, this gentle opening to something greater than what you've known. Ancient traditions would call this standing at the threshold between worlds. Modern neuroscience calls it neuroplasticity activation, the moment when your brain becomes maximally receptive to new neural pathway formation. But what it really represents is your soul remembering its true nature, its actual capacity, its unlimited potential. Don't try to understand this with your thinking mind. Let your entire being absorb it. Let your cells receive the frequency. Let your quantum field integrate the information at levels that bypass the analytical mind completely. Because what's happening right now is preparing you for what comes next. The deeper revelations that will show you exactly how to work with this energy of transformation instead of fighting against it with fear and doubt. Dr. Amit Goswami, the quantum physicist who revolutionized our understanding of consciousness and reality, spent decades researching what he calls the quantum self. His groundbreaking work at the University of Oregon revealed something that challenges everything mainstream science believed about the brain and awareness. When we authentically release our identification with habitual patterns, our brain waves synchronize with what he terms the non-local consciousness, a higher dimensional aspect of awareness that exists beyond the limitations of space, time, and physical form. But this isn't just modern science stumbling upon new territory. The Tibetan book of Living and Dying, written over 1,000 years ago, describes in remarkably precise detail the stages of consciousness that occur during what they call bardo, the intermediate state between one existence and another. What's absolutely remarkable is that their descriptions of ego dissolution and identity transformation match exactly what neuroscientists are now observing in brain scans during profound meditative states and mystical experiences. Dr. Eben Alexander, the Harvard-trained neurosurgeon who experienced a near-death journey that transformed his entire understanding of consciousness, describes traveling to what he calls the core, a realm of pure awareness where individual identity dissolves into something infinitely vast. His scientific training struggled to comprehend what his consciousness had directly experienced, a state of being where releasing the separate self led to expansion into something that felt more real, more true, more authentically himself than anything he'd ever known in ordinary waking consciousness. The ancient Sufi poet Rumi wrote these words, "You were born with wings. Why do you prefer to crawl through life?" What he understood through direct mystical experience and what quantum consciousness research is now validating through repeatable experiments is that our limited identity isn't who we actually are. It's who we've been conditioned to believe we are through years of social programming, parental expectations, cultural narratives, and survival-based thinking. In the Hindu tradition, there's a profound concept called moksha, which means liberation from the cycle of suffering and limitation. But moksha doesn't come through gaining something new, through adding more techniques or practices or knowledge. It comes through releasing the fundamental illusion of separateness, the false belief that we are isolated, limited beings, disconnected from the source of all existence. Modern physicists like Carlo Rovelli and Sean Carroll are discovering through quantum field theory that at the most fundamental level, separateness is indeed an illusion. Everything is interconnected. Everything emerges from one unified field of consciousness expressing itself in infinite forms and patterns. The Zen master Dogen taught that enlightenment is dropping off body and mind, not destroying them, not rejecting them, but releasing our identification with them as the totality of who we are. Recent studies in consciousness research at institutions like Johns Hopkins and Imperial College London show that during profound letting go experiences, activity in the brain's default mode network, the neural structure responsible for self-referential thinking and the sense of being a separate self, dramatically decreases. At the same time, areas associated with unity consciousness, feelings of interconnection, and transcendent awareness become hyperactive. But here's what these traditions and scientific researchers have observed that completely changes how we approach transformation. The letting go process isn't random or chaotic. It follows specific principles, identifiable patterns, distinct stages that can be understood, navigated, and supported with wisdom rather than blind faith. This is where science and spirituality stop being opposites and reveal themselves as two languages describing the same fundamental truth about consciousness and its infinite capacity for transformation. 3 years ago, I found myself sitting in complete darkness at 2:30 in the morning, tears streaming down my face in waves that felt like they were coming from the deepest places of my soul. I had just walked away from everything that defined my existence. My career that everyone admired, my relationship that looked perfect from the outside, my entire carefully constructed sense of who I was in the world. Everything that made me feel secure, successful, worthy of respect and recognition. For months before that night, I had been feeling this strange pull, this inner knowing that the life I was living wasn't aligned with something essential inside me. But every single time I considered making a change, my mind would flood with fears. What will people think when they see you throw your life away? How will you survive without the security you've built? You're being selfish and irresponsible. You're going to regret this for the rest of your life. That night, sitting alone in the darkness, I realized something that cracked open my entire understanding of myself. Those weren't my fears. They were the fears of the version of myself I had been taught to be. The version that needed external validation to feel worthy of existence. The version that believed security came from controlling outcomes and meeting expectations. The version that thought my identity was my job title, my relationship status, my possessions, my achievements. And in that moment of complete and total breakdown, when I had no energy left to hold anything together, something extraordinary occurred. I stopped trying to figure out what to do next. I stopped trying to manage the situation or control the outcome. I stopped trying to be strong or keep it together. I just completely let go. I surrendered to the unknown with every cell in my being, not because I was brave, but because I was too exhausted to keep fighting. What happened in the weeks that followed defied everything I thought I understood about how life works and how change happens. Within days, opportunities began appearing that I couldn't have imagined in my wildest dreams. People entered my life who were perfectly aligned with something I couldn't even articulate yet. Resources materialized in ways that seemed almost magical, as if the universe itself was conspiring to support this new direction. But the most profound shift wasn't external. It was internal. I began to experience life from a completely different frequency of consciousness. Where I used to feel anxiety, I felt excitement and curiosity. Where I used to feel limited and trapped, I felt expansive and free. Where I used to feel separate and alone, I felt deeply connected to something vast, intelligent, and infinitely loving. That's when I finally understood what the mystics meant when they spoke of death and rebirth. That's when I realized why every spiritual tradition emphasizes surrender as the doorway to liberation. That's when I discovered what quantum physicists mean when they say the observer affects the observed, that consciousness doesn't just witness reality, but actively participates in creating it. The old me didn't evolve or improve into the new me. The old me dissolved completely, and the new me emerged from an entirely different level of consciousness, from a dimension of being that had always been there, but remained hidden behind the walls of the false identity I'd been maintaining through constant effort and control. This isn't just my personal story, it's the archetypal story of every soul that has ever experienced genuine transformation. And if you're watching this video, if these words are resonating in your being, it's calling to become your story too. Because what I discovered in that moment of complete surrender, what the quantum field revealed when I finally stopped resisting, is what I've dedicated my life to sharing with others who feel that same call. The path isn't about becoming someone new or different. It's about remembering who you've always been beneath all the layers of conditioning, beneath all the fears and false beliefs, beneath the version of yourself you were taught you had to be to survive and be accepted. And that remembering, that return to your authentic nature, it always begins with letting go of what was never real in the first place. If something in that story awakened a recognition in your own soul, if you felt that stirring of possibility in your own quantum field, then you're ready to go much deeper into these mysteries. Subscribe to this channel right now, because this is where we explore the most profound dimensions of consciousness itself. This is where we dive into the hidden mechanics of reality that most people never discover in their entire lifetime. We don't just talk about transformation here. We don't just discuss theories or share inspirational quotes. We go into the actual lived experience of consciousness evolution, into the practical mechanics of how human beings access higher dimensions of existence, into the real science and ancient wisdom that show us exactly how to navigate these quantum shifts with grace and clarity. This is where seekers become finders, where questions become direct experiences, where possibilities become lived realities, where the quantum field reveals your true nature not as concept, but as undeniable recognition. Every video on this channel is designed to take you deeper, to activate dormant potentials, to guide you through the specific stages of the transformation process that's already calling you forward. The community gathering here isn't random. You're part of a quantum field of consciousness that's waking up to its true nature. By subscribing, you're not just following a channel. You're joining a movement of human beings who are done with surface-level change and ready for complete metamorphosis. You're declaring to the universe that you're ready to step through the threshold into dimensions of being that most people never even imagine are possible. So right now, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you never miss the next transmission. Because what's coming will show you exactly how to navigate the quantum shift that's already beginning in your life. The techniques, the understanding, the wisdom that transforms this journey from something scary into something sacred and beautiful. Now, how do you recognize when this quantum shift is genuinely beginning to unfold in your own existence? The universe communicates with us through signs, through synchronicities, through subtle shifts in the texture of reality itself. But most people completely miss these signals because they're expecting dramatic, obvious changes, some thunderbolt moment of instant enlightenment. The first sign is what I call the divine restlessness. You start feeling deeply unsatisfied with things that used to bring you contentment. Your job might be objectively fine, paying well, offering security, but something inside you knows it's not aligned anymore. Your relationships might be comfortable and familiar, but they're not inspiring growth or authentic expression. Your daily routines feel empty and mechanical, even though nothing has technically changed in your external circumstances. This isn't depression or dissatisfaction in the ordinary sense. This is your soul outgrowing its current container, your consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of the identity you've been living within. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it's also the most beautiful sign that transformation is beginning. You might notice yourself questioning things you never questioned before. Why am I doing this work? Why do I live in this place? Why do I spend time with these people? These aren't rebellious thoughts or signs of instability. They're your consciousness preparing for quantum expansion. Another powerful indicator is what physicists call reality anomalies. You start noticing number sequences appearing repeatedly: 1111, 333, 555. You find yourself thinking of someone moments before they call or message you. You have dreams that feel more vivid and real than your waking life. Dreams that contain information or guidance you couldn't have accessed through normal channels. These aren't coincidences or wishful thinking. They're evidence that your consciousness is beginning to operate from a higher dimensional frequency where time becomes more fluid and information flows through non-ordinary channels. Pay close attention to how your physical body responds to different people, places, and situations. The old version of you might have ignored these somatic signals, pushed through discomfort, rationalized staying in misaligned circumstances because your mind had logical reasons. But as you attune to higher frequencies, your body becomes an exquisitely sensitive guidance system. Expansion feels light, energizing, spacious, like taking a deep breath after being underwater. Contraction feels heavy, draining, restrictive, like wearing clothing that's 3 sizes too small. You might also notice that old patterns are intensifying before they dissolve completely. This is what consciousness researcher David Hawkins called the final purging. Your habitual ways of thinking and reacting might become more pronounced, more obvious, more uncomfortable than they've ever been. This isn't a sign that you're moving backwards or that transformation isn't working. It's a sign that these patterns are losing their unconscious grip on you. They're becoming visible, brought into the light of awareness so they can be recognized for what they are and released completely. Another profound sign is the appearance of what I call quantum guides. People start entering your life who reflect your highest potential back to you. Books fall into your hands at exactly the perfect moment, containing precisely the information you need. Conversations happen that feel divinely orchestrated, as if some higher intelligence arranged the meeting. opportunities present themselves that align perfectly with your deepest values and authentic gifts. The universe literally begins to reorganize itself around your emerging truth, around the frequency you're starting to embody. But here's the sign that confirms you're in the deepest part of the quantum shift. You start experiencing what mystics throughout history have called the dark night of the soul. Everything that used to give your life meaning suddenly feels empty and pointless. Everything you used to rely on for security feels unstable and unreliable. Everything you used to turn to for identity feels foreign and fake. This can be terrifying if you don't understand what's happening. But this isn't a breakdown. This is a breakthrough. This is your consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of the old self in preparation for something infinitely more authentic. Think of the caterpillar in the cocoon. At a certain point in the metamorphosis process, the caterpillar's body literally dissolves into liquid. If you open the cocoon at that moment, you wouldn't find a caterpillar or a butterfly. You'd find primordial soup, undifferentiated cellular material with no form or structure. That's what the dark night of the soul represents. The dissolution phase where the old form must completely let go before the new form can emerge. It's the most sacred, most necessary, most beautiful part of the entire transformation process, even though it feels like death to the part of you that's dissolving. But here's what I haven't told you yet. Here's the piece of understanding that changes everything about how you navigate this quantum shift. There's a specific moment in the letting go process where most people turn back in fear. There's a threshold that, once crossed, makes the transformation irreversible. And there's a choice you'll be faced with that determines whether you complete the shift or remain trapped between two worlds, not fully the old self, but not yet embodying the new. Ancient alchemists called this stage the nigredo, the blackening, the phase where everything must dissolve in darkness before it can be reborn in light. Modern neuroscience has identified this as the neural gap, the space between the death of old neural pathways and the formation of new ones. Quantum physicists recognize it as the collapse point, the moment where one probability wave ends and another begins to take form from pure potential. But what the teachers don't tell you, what you can only discover through direct experience, is that this moment doesn't just happen once. It happens multiple times during the transformation process, each time at a progressively deeper level, each time requiring greater faith, greater trust, greater willingness to step into complete unknown. And there's something else that determines not just whether you successfully navigate this quantum shift, but how quickly you move through it, how gracefully you experience it, and how completely you embody the new version of yourself that's waiting to emerge. It has to do with a principle that's hidden in the deepest teachings of every mystical tradition, encoded in the most advanced theories of quantum mechanics, and reflected in the transformation stories of every person who has successfully made this journey from false self to authentic being. What is this principle? What is this secret that makes all the difference between those who successfully transform and those who get stuck in the in-between space, unable to move forward, but unable to go back? The principle is this: consciousness doesn't transform through addition. It transforms through subtraction. You don't become your true self by adding new qualities, new skills, new identities. You become your true self by removing everything that isn't authentically you, by releasing every false belief, every borrowed identity, every learned behavior that was never aligned with your true nature in the first place. Think about Michelangelo's approach to sculpture. When asked how he created his masterpiece, David, he said he simply removed everything that wasn't David. The statue was already there, inside the block of marble. His job wasn't to create it. His job was to remove everything that was hiding it from view. This is the quantum mechanics of consciousness transformation. Your authentic self isn't something you need to create or become. It's something you need to uncover by releasing everything that's been covering it up. When you truly let go of the old self, when you stop trying to maintain and protect and improve the limited version of who you think you are, your entire nervous system undergoes what neuroscientists call coherent reorganization. Every system in your body begins to function at a radically higher level of efficiency and harmony. Your stress response system completely recalibrates. The constant state of fight or flight that comes from trying to control outcomes, protect the ego, and maintain a false sense of security begins to dissolve at the cellular level. Your cortisol levels normalize. Your heart rate variability increases dramatically. Your immune system strengthens as it's no longer depleted by chronic stress. But more profound than any of these measurable changes, you begin to experience a deep sense of inner peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances being a certain way. You're no longer at the mercy of what happens around you because your center of gravity has shifted from outside to inside. Your cognitive function transforms dramatically when you're no longer using vast amounts of mental energy to maintain old patterns, defend the ego structure, and suppress authentic impulses. Your mind becomes incredibly clear, creative, and intuitive. Problems that seemed impossibly complex suddenly have obvious, elegant solutions. Creative ideas flow effortlessly without force or strain. Decision-making becomes simple and natural because you're aligned with your truth rather than your fears and conditioning. Dr. Bruce Lipton's groundbreaking research on epigenetics demonstrates that when we change our beliefs about who we are and what's possible, we literally change which genes are expressed in our bodies at the cellular level. The genes associated with stress response, inflammation, and premature aging become less active. The genes associated with vitality, cellular regeneration, and optimal health become more active. You're not just changing your psychology, you're changing your biology. You're transforming at the level of DNA expression. But the most profound benefit, the one that changes everything about how you experience existence, is what spiritual traditions call self-realization. The direct recognition of your true nature beyond all conditioning, beyond all limitations, beyond all stories about who you're supposed to be. This isn't a concept you understand intellectually. It's a living reality you experience in every moment. You begin to live from what Zen masters call beginner's mind, a state of constant freshness, wonder, and openness to infinite possibilities. You stop approaching each moment from the perspective of past wounds and future fears. You start responding to life from presence, from authenticity, from love that isn't dependent on getting something in return. Your relationships transform because you're no longer trying to extract something from other people to complete yourself. You're not looking for validation, security, or identity from external sources. You love from fullness rather than emptiness. You give from abundance rather than scarcity. Just as happened in my own journey, opportunities begin to appear that are perfectly aligned with your authentic gifts and deepest values. Money flows more easily because you're no longer blocking abundance with limiting beliefs about worthiness and scarcity. Health improves dramatically because you're no longer creating illness through internal conflict and chronic stress. Creativity explodes because you're no longer censoring your authentic expression to fit someone else's expectations. But perhaps most importantly, you develop what I call quantum trust, an unshakable faith in the intelligence of existence itself. You know at the deepest level that everything is unfolding for your highest evolution. You know that the universe isn't random or chaotic, but guided by a profound intelligence that's always moving toward greater consciousness, greater love, greater truth. You know that letting go isn't about losing anything. It's about gaining access to everything you've always been, but couldn't see through the veil of false identity. Pause for a moment. Really pause. What if everything you've been taught about change, about growth, about becoming your best self has been completely backwards from the start? What if the entire path to your highest potential isn't about adding more knowledge, developing more skills, or becoming more accomplished, but about releasing, surrendering, letting go of everything that isn't authentically you? What if all the struggles you've experienced, all the resistance you felt, all the seeming impossibility of lasting change, what if all of that has been happening because you've been trying to transform while still holding tightly to the very identity structure that needed to dissolve? Think about your own life for a moment. How much energy are you currently spending trying to manage circumstances, control outcomes, and improve your situation while staying essentially the same person at the core? How much effort are you putting into changing your external world while keeping your internal world exactly as it's always been? What would happen if you just stopped? What would happen if you completely let go? Not of your responsibilities, not of your care for others, not of your authentic desires and dreams, but of the exhausting need to be who you think you're supposed to be. What if the person you're trying so desperately hard to become is actually a smaller, more limited version of who you already are at your deepest core? What if beneath all the conditioning, beneath all the fear and self-doubt, beneath all the stories about limitation and lack, there exists a version of you that's already complete, already whole, already connected to infinite intelligence and unconditional love? This isn't just philosophical speculation or spiritual bypassing. This is the direct experience that every mystic throughout history has reported with remarkable consistency. This is the reality that quantum physics is pointing toward with increasing precision. This is the transformation that becomes possible the exact moment you stop trying to improve the false self and start allowing the true self to emerge from the field of pure potential. The caterpillar doesn't try to become a better caterpillar through self-improvement programs. It doesn't go to caterpillar therapy or read caterpillar self-help books or set caterpillar goals for becoming slightly more efficient at crawling. It surrenders so completely to the transformation encoded in its very DNA that its entire being dissolves, liquefies, releases all structure before something entirely new emerges. Something that was always its potential, but could never manifest while it insisted on remaining a caterpillar, while it clung to caterpillar identity? What if your struggles, your dissatisfaction, your deep longing for something more, what if these aren't signs that something is wrong with you? What if they're signs that something is so profoundly right with you that your soul is no longer willing to settle for anything less than your full potential, your complete authenticity, your total liberation from everything false and limiting? What if this exact moment right now, as you absorb these words and feel these truths resonating in your being, what if this is the precise beginning of your own quantum shift? What if the simple act of watching this video, feeling these possibilities, sensing this recognition, is your consciousness preparing for the most beautiful transformation of your entire existence? The only question that remains is this: are you ready to trust the process? Are you ready to let go of who you think you are and discover who you've always been beneath the masks and roles and identities? Are you ready to stop crawling when you were born with wings? But there's something crucial I need to share with you before we go further. What I've revealed so far is just the foundation, the preparation for something much deeper, much more profound, much more transformative than most people ever imagine is possible for human consciousness. There are levels to this quantum shift that go far beyond personal transformation or individual awakening. There are dimensions of awareness that open up when you complete this process of letting go, that connect you to capacities, insights, and experiences that ordinary consciousness considers impossible. I'm talking about what the ancient yogis call siddhis, the natural abilities that emerge when consciousness is no longer limited by identification with the separate self. I'm talking about what modern physicists are discovering about the role of consciousness in literally shaping reality at the quantum level. I'm talking about abilities like precognition, synchronicity generation, instant manifestation, healing through presence, and direct knowing that bypasses all ordinary channels of information. In the videos that will follow this one, I'm going to take you into territory that few people are genuinely ready to explore. I'm going to show you what happens when the quantum shift is complete, when you're fully embodying your authentic self, when you're operating from what the mystics call unity consciousness, or what quantum physics describes as the unified field. You're going to discover how consciousness doesn't just observe reality, but actively participates in creating it at every moment. You're going to learn about specific quantum field techniques that allow you to manifest from a completely different level of being, not through visualization or affirmation, but through embodiment of the frequency you wish to experience. You're going to understand why synchronicities multiply exponentially as you align with your authentic nature, why intuitive abilities amplify dramatically when you release false identity, why your very presence begins to elevate the consciousness of everyone around you without any effort or technique. But here's what you need to understand with absolute clarity. These aren't special supernatural powers that some rare individuals possess and others don't. These are natural capacities of consciousness itself, accessible to anyone who has completed the journey from ego identification to authentic being. They're the birthright of human consciousness, available when you're no longer using all your energy to maintain a false identity structure. The question is, how far are you willing to go? How deep are you willing to dive into your own consciousness? How completely are you willing to let go of everything you think you know about who you are and what's possible for human awareness? Because what comes next will challenge every assumption you've ever had about the nature of reality, the power of consciousness, and your role as a creative force in this quantum universe. Let me tell you what's happening in your body right now as you undergo this process of release. When you authentically let go, when you stop the constant effort of maintaining and defending the old identity structure, your autonomic nervous system shifts from sympathetic dominance to parasympathetic activation. What this means in practical terms is that your body moves out of survival mode and into healing mode, out of contraction and into expansion. Your vagus nerve, which runs from your brainstem down through your heart and digestive system, begins to fire in a completely different pattern. This nerve is literally the physical pathway for what mystics call the descent of grace. When it's activated through genuine surrender, it sends signals throughout your entire body that it's safe to let go, safe to open, safe to trust. Your heart rate variability increases, which is one of the most reliable markers of resilience, adaptability, and overall health that modern medicine has discovered. Your endocrine system, the network of glands that produces hormones, undergoes dramatic reorganization. Your adrenal glands, which have been pumping out cortisol and adrenaline in response to chronic stress and fear-based living, finally get a chance to rest and restore. Your pineal gland, which ancient traditions called the seat of the soul and the third eye, begins to produce higher levels of DMT and other compounds associated with expanded states of consciousness and mystical experience. Your immune system, which has been suppressed by years of chronic stress and internal conflict, rebounds with remarkable speed. Studies show that people who undergo genuine spiritual transformation experience measurable increases in natural killer cell activity, antibody production, and overall immune function. Your body literally becomes more resistant to disease, more capable of healing itself, more resilient in the face of challenges. But the most fascinating changes occur in your brain. Functional MRI studies show that during profound letting go experiences, the default mode network becomes dramatically less active. This is the collection of brain regions responsible for self-referential thinking, for the constant narrative of me and my story and my problems. When this network quiets down, other areas of the brain that are usually suppressed become incredibly active. The anterior cingulate cortex, which is associated with attention and awareness, lights up like a Christmas tree. The insula, which processes interoceptive awareness, or the ability to sense what's happening inside your body, becomes hyperactive. The temporoparietal junction, which is involved in perspective taking and empathy, shows increased connectivity with other brain regions. You literally become more aware, more present, more connected to yourself and others. Dr. Andrew Newberg's research at the University of Pennsylvania, using SPECT imaging, has shown that during mystical experiences and moments of profound surrender, blood flow decreases to the parietal lobes, the brain regions that create our sense of being a separate self located in space and time. When activity in these regions decreases, the boundary between self and other dissolves. People report feeling at one with everything, connected to the entire universe, part of something infinitely larger than their individual identity. This isn't just subjective experience. This is measurable, repeatable neuroscience. Your brain is literally capable of experiencing states of consciousness where the separate self dissolves and you recognize your true nature as infinite awareness itself. And here's what's truly extraordinary. These brain states aren't rare anomalies that only happen to saints and mystics. They're natural capacities that become accessible when you release your identification with the limited self. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research has documented thousands of cases of people experiencing spontaneous healings during meditation retreats focused on letting go and surrendering to the quantum field. Tumors disappearing, chronic pain vanishing, autoimmune conditions going into complete remission, not through medical intervention, but through consciousness transformation. When you change who you're being at the deepest level, your biology changes to match the new frequency you're embodying. The Institute of HeartMath has shown that the electromagnetic field generated by your heart extends several feet beyond your physical body and can be detected by sensitive instruments. When you're in a state of coherence, when your heart and brain are synchronized, when you've let go of fear and resistance, this field becomes dramatically more powerful and organized. And here's what's remarkable. This field affects the physiology of people around you. Your state of being literally influences the nervous systems of others in your presence. This is why authentic spiritual teachers, people who have genuinely completed this transformation, can walk into a room and everyone feels it. There's a palpable shift in the atmosphere. People feel calmer, more present, more open. It's not charisma or personality. It's the organized electromagnetic field generated by a nervous system that's no longer locked in survival mode, no longer defending a false identity, no longer resisting what is. Your DNA itself changes through this process. Epigenetic research shows that gene expression is influenced not just by your physical environment, but by your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. When you release limiting beliefs and fear-based patterns, genes associated with optimal health become more active. When you shift from a survival-based identity to an authentic expression of your true nature, your cells literally receive different instructions about how to function. Dr. Bruce Lipton's work demonstrates that the membrane of each cell acts like a brain, receiving signals from the environment and deciding which genes to express. When you change your internal environment through consciousness transformation, you change the signals your cells are receiving. You're not stuck with the genetic hand you were dealt. You have far more influence over your biology than mainstream medicine has ever acknowledged. This is why people who undergo genuine spiritual transformation often look younger, feel more energetic, and experience dramatic improvements in health. They're not just thinking more positive thoughts. They're literally changing which genes are active in their bodies. They're shifting their biology to match the frequency of their authentic self, rather than the stress and limitation of the false self. Now let's talk about what this transformation looks like in the practical dimensions of your daily life. Because this isn't just about inner experience or spiritual states. This quantum shift affects every single area of your existence in measurable, tangible ways. When you release the old self and embody your authentic nature, reality itself begins to reorganize around the new frequency you're radiating. Your relationships transform in ways that can seem almost miraculous. People who are perfectly matched to your old frequency who reinforced your old patterns and false identity naturally fade from your life. Not through conflict or drama, but through gentle divergence of paths. You simply stop resonating with each other. At the same time, new people appear who match your authentic frequency, who see and appreciate the real you, who support your continued evolution rather than trying to keep you in the box of who you used to be. If you're in a romantic relationship, when this shift occurs, one of two things happens. Either your partner resonates with your transformation and begins their own journey of awakening, creating a relationship of mutual growth and authentic connection, or the relationship ends, not because anyone did anything wrong, but because you're no longer frequency matches. This can be painful, yes, but it's also deeply compassionate. Staying in a relationship that's no longer aligned serves neither person's highest evolution. Your relationship with your family shifts dramatically. You stop trying to be who they want you to be. You stop seeking their approval for your choices. You stop letting their fears and limitations define what's possible for you. This doesn't mean you stop loving them or cut them out of your life. It means you love them from a place of wholeness rather than need. You can be with them without being pulled back into old patterns. You can honor them without sacrificing yourself. Your work and career transform in alignment with your authentic gifts and deepest values. If you're in work that was never truly aligned, you'll feel an undeniable pull to make a change. Opportunities will appear that you couldn't have imagined before. Doors will open that seemed locked or invisible. The universe conspires to support you in expressing your authentic gifts, because that's how the quantum field works. When you align with your truth, reality aligns with you. Many people discover that work they thought was their passion was actually just the best option they could imagine from the limited perspective of the old self. When the true self emerges, entirely new possibilities become visible. Callings you didn't know existed. Gifts you didn't know you had. Paths that weren't even on your radar suddenly become obvious and compelling. Your relationship with money undergoes radical transformation. Most people's financial struggles aren't about skills or opportunities. They're about unconscious beliefs around worthiness, scarcity, and deserving. When you release the false self that believes it's not enough, that has to prove its value, that's afraid there isn't enough, your relationship with money naturally shifts to one of flow and abundance. This doesn't mean money magically appears without any action on your part. It means you stop blocking the natural flow of abundance with limiting beliefs and fear-based decisions. You start taking inspired action aligned with your authentic gifts. You stop underselling yourself or staying in situations that don't value your contributions. You develop quantum trust that the universe will support you in expressing your true nature. People often report that after this transformation, money comes more easily from unexpected sources. Old debts get paid. Opportunities for increased income appear. Expenses decrease, not through manipulation or positive thinking, but through alignment with a more abundant frequency of consciousness. You're no longer vibrating at the frequency of lack and struggle. So lack and struggle stop being your predominant experience. Your physical health often undergoes remarkable improvement. Chronic conditions that doctors said you'd have to manage for life suddenly improve or disappear completely. Pain that you thought was just part of aging vanishes. Energy levels increase dramatically. You need less sleep, but feel more rested. Your body's natural healing mechanisms, which were suppressed by chronic stress and internal conflict, can finally function as they were designed to. Your creativity explodes in ways you couldn't have imagined. Whether you're an artist or not, you discover creative expression flowing through you effortlessly. You might start writing, painting, making music, designing, building, creating in ways that surprise you. This isn't about becoming good at a new skill. It's about allowing life force energy to express itself through you without the filters and blocks of the false self. Your intuition becomes remarkably clear and reliable. You know things without knowing how you know them. You sense what's aligned and what isn't. You make decisions quickly and easily because you're connected to a deeper intelligence than the thinking mind. You trust your inner guidance because you've experienced again and again that it leads you exactly where you need to go. Synchronicities multiply exponentially. You think of someone and they call. You need information and a book falls off the shelf. You wonder about something and a conversation provides the answer. The universe becomes an interactive field responding to your consciousness, reflecting back to you that you're on the right path, that you're aligned with your authentic nature, that you're being supported by forces beyond what the rational mind can comprehend. This is what it means to live as your authentic self, rather than as a collection of conditioned patterns and borrowed identities. This is what becomes possible when you complete the quantum shift from the false self to the true self. And this is just the beginning of what I want to share with you about the extraordinary capacities that emerge when human consciousness releases its self-imposed limitations. But I need to tell you something that most teachers won't acknowledge because it challenges the neat narratives of transformation and awakening. This quantum shift, this journey from false self to authentic being, it's not a one-time event. It's not a single breakthrough moment after which everything is permanently changed and you never struggle again. It's a spiral, a continual deepening, a series of deaths and rebirths, each one taking you to a more profound level of truth. Just when you think you've let go completely, you discover there's another layer of identification you didn't even know you were holding. Just when you think you've reached your authentic self, you realize that identity too was constructed, another role you were playing. The quantum shift isn't a destination. It's an ongoing process of releasing, surrendering, letting go of everything that's not the deepest truth of what you are. The great Zen master Shunryu Suzuki said that enlightenment is just one mistake after another. What he meant is that the path isn't about achieving some perfect state. It's about having the courage and humility to keep letting go, to keep dying to who you think you are, to keep surrendering to the mystery that's always deeper than any concept or understanding. There will be moments when you feel like you've lost your way, moments when the old patterns seem to come back with a vengeance, moments when you wonder if any of this transformation was real, or if you just convinced yourself something had changed. These moments aren't signs that you've failed. They're invitations to go deeper, to release at an even more fundamental level, to surrender more completely than you thought possible. The dark night of the soul doesn't happen just once. It happens at every threshold of genuine transformation. Every time you're ready to expand into a new level of consciousness, everything that's not aligned with that frequency must be released. And that release always feels like death to the part of you that's dissolving. It's supposed to feel that way. If it felt comfortable and easy, you wouldn't be releasing anything real. You'd just be rearranging the furniture in the same old room. What I've discovered through my own journey and through working with thousands of people navigating this process is that transformation happens in waves. There are periods of rapid expansion where everything flows, where synchronicities abound, where you feel deeply aligned and connected. Then there are periods of integration where it feels like nothing is happening, where you question everything, where the old patterns seem to have the upper hand again. Both phases are essential. The expansion phases take you to new territory. The integration phases allow that new territory to become your baseline, to stabilize at the new level before the next expansion occurs. If you judge yourself during the integration phases, if you think something has gone wrong, you create unnecessary suffering. But if you understand that integration is as important as expansion, you can move through these cycles with grace and trust. There's a teaching in Tibetan Buddhism about the importance of not trying to hold on to peak experiences. They say that grasping at bliss is just another form of suffering. The goal isn't to remain in expanded states permanently. The goal is to become so deeply rooted in your true nature that you're unshaken by the natural fluctuations of experience, by the movement between expansion and integration, by the cycles of birth and death that are woven into the fabric of existence itself. This is what's meant by equanimity, by the peace that passes understanding. It's not the absence of challenges or difficult emotions. It's an unshakable knowing of who you truly are beneath all the temporary experiences, all the changing states, all the waves that move across the surface of consciousness. When you know yourself as the ocean and not just the waves, the movement of the waves no longer disturbs your fundamental peace. So as you navigate your own quantum shift, as you experience the death of the old self and the birth of the authentic self, remember this: there will be moments of profound clarity and moments of complete confusion. There will be times when you feel like you're flying and times when you feel like you're drowning. Both are part of the process. Both are necessary. Both are perfect exactly as they are. Your only job is to keep letting go, to keep surrendering, to keep releasing your grip on who you think you should be and allowing yourself to discover who you actually are beneath all the conditioning and fear. Trust the process even when it doesn't make sense, especially when it doesn't make sense, because the thinking mind can never comprehend what's happening at these deeper levels of consciousness transformation. As we approach the completion of our time together today, I want to leave you with something that the quantum field has been communicating to you throughout this entire experience, something that your soul recognizes, but your mind might still be trying to grasp. The version of you that began watching this video is fundamentally different from the version of you receiving these words right now. Something has shifted. Something has awakened. Something has been activated at a cellular, energetic, quantum level of your being. You might not feel dramatically transformed. The change might be so subtle that your conscious mind barely registers it. But your quantum field knows. Your higher self knows. The universe knows. And here's the profound mystery I want you to sit with. The fact that you found this video, that you stayed until this moment, that these words are creating resonance in your being right now, none of this is coincidence or random chance. Your quantum field has been orchestrating this moment for longer than you consciously realize. There are forces, intelligences, aspects of yourself that exist beyond the boundaries of linear time and three-dimensional space that have been guiding you toward this recognition, toward this remembering, toward this precise moment of choosing between remaining in the comfort of the known old self and stepping into the thrilling unknown of your authentic nature. The question that will echo in your consciousness long after this video ends is this: what if the quantum shift isn't something that's going to happen to you at some future time? What if it's something that's already happening through you in this very moment? What if every moment of dissatisfaction with the old life, every stirring of possibility, every recognition of truth has been part of a transformation that began long before you consciously registered it? What if letting go isn't something you do with effort and willpower? What if it's something you allow by simply ceasing to resist? What if the old you, the one you've been working so hard to improve and perfect and maintain, was never real in the first place? What if who you think you are is just a temporary dream, and who you really are is the dreamer awakening to recognize its own nature? The answers to these questions aren't found in more thinking, more analyzing, more trying to figure it all out with the rational mind. They're found in the space of pure awareness that opens up when you stop trying to know and become willing to not know. They're found in the silence between thoughts, in the peace that exists before any experience arises, in the love that's present prior to any object of love. This is where the real journey begins. Not at the end of this video, but in the space that opens up after the words stop. In the moments of your daily life when you notice yourself starting to grip, to control, to defend the old identity structure. In those moments, you'll have a choice. You can do what you've always done: react from the old patterns, maintain the false self. Or you can pause, breathe, and simply let go into the unknown. Each time you choose to let go, even just a little bit, you're completing the quantum shift one layer at a time. Each time you choose presence over pattern, authenticity over performance, truth over comfort, you're embodying more of your real nature. The transformation isn't waiting for some perfect moment in the future. It's available right now in every choice you make, every breath you take, every moment you're willing to release your grip on who you think you should be. If you've stayed with me until this moment, if you've allowed these words to penetrate not just your analytical mind, but your entire being, then you know that something irreversible has been set in motion. The quantum shift we've been exploring isn't just a concept or theory anymore. It's a living reality beginning to unfold in your actual existence. The old you that woke up this morning was operating from one level of consciousness, one frequency of being. The you that's receiving these words right now has access to dimensions of possibility that didn't exist in your awareness before this transmission. This isn't metaphorical language. This is quantum mechanics. This is how consciousness actually works. Information doesn't just enter your mind as abstract knowledge. It changes the very structure of your brain, the patterns of your nervous system, the frequency of your electromagnetic field. You are literally different than you were 35 minutes ago. The question is what you do with this difference, how you nurture this activation, whether you allow it to deepen and integrate or let it fade back into the background noise of ordinary consciousness. This is why I've created a series of videos that will guide you through each stage of this transformation process. Each video builds on the last, taking you deeper into the mystery, higher into the possibilities, further into the truth of who you really are beyond all limitations and conditioning. The next video in this series will reveal the specific techniques that allow you to navigate the quantum shift with grace instead of struggle, with trust instead of fear. You'll discover the ancient practices that modern neuroscience has now proven can literally rewire your brain in real time, creating new neural pathways that support your authentic self rather than reinforcing old patterns. You'll learn the exact steps that transform letting go from a scary leap into the void into a joyful dance with infinite possibility. You'll understand how to recognize when you're moving into deeper layers of release and how to support yourself through the integration phases that follow expansion. Right now on your screen, you're seeing videos that represent different facets of your quantum transformation. Each one contains keys that unlock different dimensions of your awakening. Each one reveals different pieces of the puzzle of becoming fully yourself. Choose the one that calls to you most powerfully. Trust that attraction. It's not random selection. It's your quantum field guiding you toward the next perfect step in your evolution, toward the specific transmission you need to receive right now. And as you click on that video, as you continue this journey of discovering your true nature, remember something essential. You're not just watching videos about transformation and consciousness evolution. You're actively participating in the awakening of human consciousness itself. You're part of a quantum field of beings who are done with surface level change, who are ready for complete metamorphosis, who are willing to let go of everything false to discover what's eternally true. Every person who completes this journey, who makes this quantum shift from false self to authentic being, makes it easier for others to do the same. Consciousness doesn't evolve in isolation. We're all connected at the quantum level. When you raise your frequency, you literally make it easier for everyone around you to access higher frequencies. When you embody your truth, you give others permission to embody theirs. When you let go of fear and limitation, you weaken those patterns in the collective field. So this journey you're embarking on isn't just for yourself. It's a gift to everyone whose life you touch. It's a contribution to the evolution of our entire species. It's a sacred responsibility and a profound privilege. You're not just transforming your own life. You're helping to transform the consciousness of humanity itself. And that makes you a pioneer, an evolutionary agent, a bridge between the old paradigm of limitation and fear, and the emerging paradigm of expanded consciousness and unconditional love. Welcome to the quantum reflection. Welcome to the mirror that shows you your highest self. Welcome to the beginning of the most extraordinary adventure of your entire existence. The next level of your awakening is waiting for you, just one click away. But before you move forward, I want you to sit with something for just a moment. Close your eyes if you're in a place where that's safe to do. Take a deep breath all the way down into your belly. And notice what you're feeling right now in this moment, not what you're thinking about what I've shared, not whether you agree or disagree with any particular concept, but what you're actually experiencing in your body, in your energy field, in that subtle space where knowing happens before thought arises. There's something moving in you right now, something that's been dormant for a very long time, something that remembers what you've forgotten, something that knows you're so much more than you've been allowing yourself to be. That something is your authentic self, your true nature, your soul's deepest knowing. And it's been waiting for this moment, for this recognition, for this permission to finally emerge from behind all the masks and roles and identities you've been hiding behind. You don't have to figure out what to do with this activation. You don't have to understand it or analyze it or make sense of it with your rational mind. You just have to let it be. Let it move through you. Let it reorganize your energy field. Let it begin the process of dissolving everything that's false so everything that's true can finally shine through without obstruction. The quantum shift is happening whether you believe in it or not, whether you understand it or not, whether you're ready or not. It's the natural evolution of consciousness. It's where humanity is heading. And you're part of the leading edge, the ones who are feeling the call before the masses, the ones who are willing to let go before it becomes the only option, the ones who are choosing transformation through consciousness rather than being forced into it through crisis. This makes you rare. This makes you valuable beyond measure. This makes you exactly what the world needs right now, not because you're special or superior to anyone else, but because you're willing. You're willing to question everything. You're willing to let go of certainty. You're willing to step into the unknown with nothing but faith that there's something more real, more true, more authentic waiting to be discovered. As you move forward from this moment, as you watch the next videos in this series, as you navigate the quantum shift in your own unique way, remember that you're never alone in this process. You're supported by forces you can't see, guided by intelligence you can't comprehend with the thinking mind, held by a love that has no conditions or boundaries. The universe itself is conspiring to help you remember who you really are. Every challenge you face is an invitation to let go at a deeper level. Every moment of confusion is an opportunity to release the need to understand everything with the mind. Every experience of fear is a doorway to courage, to trust, to faith in something larger than your small sense of self. Nothing is happening to you. Everything is happening for you, for your evolution, for your awakening, for your ultimate liberation from all that's false. The old paradigm taught us that we're separate, isolated beings struggling to survive in a hostile universe. The new paradigm that's emerging reveals the truth that we're infinite consciousness temporarily experiencing limitation so we can rediscover our unlimited nature through the process of remembering who we really are. You're not a human being having occasional spiritual experiences. You're infinite awareness having a temporary human experience. And that human experience is designed perfectly to catalyze your awakening. Every single thing that's ever happened to you, every joy and every pain, every success and every failure, every moment of connection, and every experience of loneliness, all of it has been conspiring to bring you to this exact point, this moment of recognition, this threshold of transformation, this quantum shift from the false self to the authentic self. Nothing has been wasted. Nothing has been random. Everything has had purpose even when you couldn't see it. So as this transmission comes to completion, as you prepare to take the next step on your journey, I want you to acknowledge yourself for having the courage to watch this video, for staying open even when the ideas challenged your current understanding, for allowing something new to enter your consciousness, for being willing to question who you think you are, for having the courage to let go. You're doing something that most people are too afraid to do. You're choosing growth over comfort. You're choosing truth over security. You're choosing evolution over stagnation. And that choice, that willingness, that openness is already transforming you at levels you can't yet perceive. Trust the process. Trust yourself. Trust the intelligence that brought you here and that will guide you forward. The quantum shift only happens when you let go of the old you. But here's the final secret I want to leave you with. The old you never existed in the first place. It was always just a story, a collection of thoughts and beliefs and identities that you mistook for your essential nature. What you're letting go of is an illusion. What you're discovering is the truth that was always there, beneath the illusion, waiting to be recognized. You are the infinite field of consciousness itself, temporarily forgetting its nature, so it can experience the joy of remembering. You are the universe becoming aware of itself through the unique perspective of this human form. You are so much more than you've been taught to believe. And now, finally, you're beginning to remember. Welcome home to yourself. Welcome to the quantum shift. Welcome to the rest of your life as your authentic self. The journey continues in the next video. I'll see you there.